Hey guys, Brent here. Let me know if you can hear me in the comments. This is my first live broadcast. I'm not quite sure how everything works. I just hope the audio is okay. So if you can comment, that'd be great. I'll add in a comment here. Can you hear me okay? Okay, let's see if that works. And I'll go over to Lightroom also. I'm just going to ask my wife, who's in the other room, whether she can see me and hear me. Can you hear me, Stage? So the audio is okay? Okay, please let me know, guys, if the audio is okay, just in the comments on this video. All right, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to run through I can hear you from, oh, there we go, Bruce, Gary, yes, thank you. Thanks, guys, for letting me know. Awesome. Okay, all good, loud and clear, great. Okay, so I can see a bunch of comments coming through. Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's a little bit of a technical challenge to get everything going on my little laptop here. I've got a proper camera facing onto me and everything's kind of wired in. Okay, so I've got some of my favorite images in Lightroom. I've just run through them really quickly, and I'm going to edit one or two of them. But these are from last year, and you can see a lot of them are wildlife images. So well, that just happens when you go on a trip to Africa and you get these amazing images. So let me just quickly run through them, and I'll run through some of the settings that I photographed these on. And I may just move, sorry, I'll go back to my desktop here, and I might just move my face down a little so that I can see the settings from the, oh, hold on, no, I think, okay, I'll move my face back up. We'll move it, I'll move it down here behind the Ecamm Live thing. That's the software I'm using to check everything out. So there we go. Okay, so this one image of a goanna I photographed at one of my favorite spots, Mungo Brush, and I photographed it with my 100mm f2.8 macro lens, laying on the ground on my belly to photograph this goanna coming towards me. And the reason I used this lens was because of that very shallow depth of field, f2.8, so I could get the goanna's face in focus. Now my computer may struggle a little bit with going live with the live software and having Lightroom running and Google Chrome running, so just bear with me if it does. All right, and also if you guys can keep your comments until after I've done the presentation, that'd be great. Then you can ask me anything and I'll deviate whichever way I can. So so there we go. What I love about this goanna is its tongue out. It's smelling me, coming towards me. So let's run through them. This image I took at Mungo Brush on the sand dunes. Also beautiful sunrise image, shooting away from the sun this time because the clouds were lit up and just beautiful. And also, by the way, guys, I'm outside, so you might hear some dogs barking, you might hear kids screaming, running around. It is school holidays, and but I love to be outdoors, and it's a beautiful autumn day here in Australia. Let me just check the comments while I'm here. I'll just add the comments. Yes, you guys can hear me okay. Danelle Jones, yes, okay, good. Yep. Okay, great. So comments are coming through. Stacy says she can hear me. That's good. Perfect. All right. So I photographed this image with a wide angle lens, a 17mm lens at f4. So that's wide open aperture, 100 ISO. Oh, sorry, f16. So no, not a wide open aperture, because I'm trying to get a very large depth of field. And if you can see my hands here, but a large depth of field, f16. And I think I was probably shooting this at aperture priority f16. I think I was, so that I can get the large depth of field, so that I can get my main point of focus in the foreground over here in focus, and I can get the dunes and everything in the background in focus. And mostly that's how I shoot my landscape images, with a very large depth of field, like f16, f22, around there. But I shoot my wildlife at a shutter priority because they're moving. So that's this one I shot at 1/500th of a second. And if you remember my shutter speed rule for photographing kids and wildlife and anything with a long lens, you double your focal length. So 100 mils I would need to shoot at 1/200th of a second, double the focal length. So just keep that in mind when you're photographing with a longer lens. Always double the focal length. And there the dogs are starting. This image I love. It's I think it's called a Moreton Bay fig tree, ancient fig tree at Wingham on the east coast of Australia. And I got another image of that over there. So I photographed that for one of my courses, my mastering composition course with my composition recipe cards. So there I'm framing this image. I'm framing it with these two little trees in the foreground to bring me into those beautiful roots coming out. This one I also photographed. I don't think I've shown anyone this image. I was going to use this in the course, but I ended up not using it because I'd already had this lesson covered. So here I was photographing this mushroom, and I was photographing from a very low angle. I was bent down underneath, and I dripped some water on top of the mushroom cap, so I'd have this water droplet dripping off. And I focused with my macro lens again on the front of the mushroom, flicked it over to manual focus so that my macro lens wouldn't hunt. It wouldn't go in and out, looking for focus. On a tripod, photographed it at 1/60th of a second, f2.8. So a reasonably shallow depth of field. My ISO, I just put it in order. So 800 ISO, not too bad for a full frame camera. I wouldn't get too much noise in this image. We've gone through that one. This image I love for two reasons. This is my local break box beach, and this is a guy getting under the barrel, getting into the tube, which is really difficult for surfing. I've tried it, and I just get crunched every time. So here he is getting into the barrel, and it's just a beautiful day, kind of a little bit backlit with the light, but the water looks beautiful, and I've got his face in focus, and I've left space for him to move into on the left here. I think it's your left. Well, anyway, I'm not quite sure how this is looking, but he's going from the right to the left. And when with waves, this is called a right-hander, right? It's from the surfer's perspective, whichever way they're going. So when they're paddling towards the beach, he's turning right, so it's called a right-hander. Here's the same day I'm photographing another surfer at the same break, but here I'm using a very slow shutter speed. So let's just go back to this one and we'll have a look. So I'm shooting it with a 600mm lens, and I'm doubling that for Brent's rule and adding a little more. So I'm shooting 1/200th of a second shutter priority mode. Then I left the aperture and the ISO in order. So I'm freezing the motion, right? You can see the edge of the wave. The water looks like it's frozen, even though it's falling quite fast. And he's traveling reasonably fast in this barrel. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Here I've done the opposite. Okay, I'm still shooting in shutter priority mode. And my lens, I'm zoomed back a little bit, so 435mm. But I'm shooting at a very slow shutter speed for that lens focal length. So I'm shooting at 1/30th of a second. I should actually be shooting at 1/800th, 1/900th, 1/1000th of a second, right? To freeze the action. But here I want to blur the action. I want to show motion. I want to show movement. So a lot of these images I'm shooting in rapid succession because a lot of them are throwaways. There's nothing great about them. They're out of focus and everything's blurred. But this one, I got the surfer and his face in relative sharpness compared to the background and the water splashing around him. So check that out. Okay, my computer's struggling a little bit, but it should come up pretty soon. It says loading here. It's probably because I'm streaming. While that's loading, hey, if you guys can send me a comment. Let's see. I got to bring up the comments again. Here we go. There we go. Okay, Komodo Dragon, great. You guys still hearing me? Okay, just leave me a quick comment and I'll have a look. Okay, there we go. So the surfer's hitting this wave. He's dragging his left hand on the edge of the wave. There's all this water squirting all over the place, splashing. He's in relatively good focus and he's quite sharp, but it shows motion, and that's what I love about this. So whenever you go out there, I suggest once you figure out something and you're getting great images, change it up a little bit. Challenge yourself to doing the opposite of what you're doing. So if you're going a very fast shutter speed, go a very slow shutter speed and test it out. There we go. Okay, run to the next one. Dingo, one of my favorite dingoes. I've named her Lucy. She's at Mangabrush in the Myall Lakes National Park. She's been there many years. I've seen her a lot. Yes, you can hear me fine. Thank you. Danielle and Q Brown. Yes, you can hear me. And Jenny, hearing you great. Okay, great, from New York. Oh, that's great. And Peter, thank you. Can hear me fine. Great, thank you. What I love about this image is, I might just turn those comments off for a second so I can see, is I've got her eye tack sharp focus and the sun's hitting it, and she's looking down her body, so she's looking and to her left, to my right, and I've left space for her to look into, and her ears are up, kind of looking that way. Is there danger? I think she was actually chewing on a bone that one of the campers may have left in the campsite. This is in one of the campsites. So you light fires in this campsite and people barbecue and stuff. But often I'm there during the week and there's no one around. So it's closed right now because of the, social distancing, pandemic. The world's been turned upside down. And by the way, guys, if you are suffering from this pandemic, my heart does go out to you. It's not nice. Definitely not nice. But it has kind of woken us up to what's important in life, I think. Well, it has for me, at least. Anyway, so Lucy looking this way. I left space for her to look into, her eyes catching the light, and it's this beautiful image. All right, so let's run through. Oh, yeah, this is Africa. So I did my first boot camp safari to Africa a year ago. And actually, it's funny enough, I should be in Africa today, right now. Actually, yesterday, 2 days ago, I should have flown out. Okay, I don't know what this is. Something died. Let's just see if I'm still streaming. Yes, looks like I'm still streaming. Okay, don't know what died there. Hopefully you guys can still hear me and see me. I'll just double check. Hey, Stace, can you hear me and see me? I'm just asking my wife. All good? Which image can you see? Okay, so this is Victoria Falls at night. With a full moon, and that rainbow is caused by the moonlight. So an unusual image, something you only really do at full moon. Okay, someone's just commented. Let me see what it is. Dogs are barking. That's great. The joys of doing stuff. Yep. Yep. A lot of people are suffering because of the pandemic. I wish you guys well. Stick it out. We'll get through this. Anyway, back to this. Victoria Falls at night. Our first night in Zimbabwe at Victoria Falls, and first time I've ever been to Zimbabwe and ever seen the Victoria Falls. And this is the first time I met a lot of my safari clients who came along, 8 of you, and you all are good friends right now, forever, I think. Anyway, so I should have been in South Africa right now for the next boot camp safari, but we've had to postpone that for another year because of what's going on. So kind of missing that. I wish I was there right now. But anyway, we can review our images and imagine that we are on safari again. So how did I photograph this? I photographed it at 30 seconds. So I'm on a tripod, and I think I went shutter priority mode, and I put aperture and the ISO all in auto. So reasonably wide angle lens, my 17 to 40 mil lens at 35 mil. So I zoomed in a little bit. Why did I zoom in? Because I had people on my left and right. So that's why I zoomed in, to get rid of distractions, right? And another thing, guys, if you are watching this, inside Bootcamp, my awesome community, I'm running a something I've never done before, 30 days for free Bootcamp. So you can test it out and see if it's for you. So I'll leave a link below this video once I get a chance to do that. So check it out. So great. And this month's Bootcamp challenge is all about removing distracting elements. So I zoomed in to remove distracting elements over here too. Yes, this is when we went for the sunset cruise on the Zambezi River, I think it is. And the hippos, love the hippos. The most dangerous wild animal in Africa. They kill more humans and all the other wild animals put together. Why? Because people that walk around at night, hippos come out at night to graze. If you're between a hippo and the water, it's going to kill you to get back to its safety zone. So be careful of hippos, they're dangerous. There's the sun going down, beautiful. And then this was the next morning, I believe. I went out with Amber and Eugene and photographed the sunrise over Zambezi, over the Victoria Falls. And this is if you look at the image name, it's an HDR image. So I've combined 3 different exposures because of the dynamic range. The sun is so bright and the foreground is so dark. So your camera can't capture it all in one image. So I've shot 3 different exposures and I've combined them to create this image. This vulture we photographed, I think her name is Judge. That's right, her name is Judge. And maybe you can figure out why she's called Judge. Have a look at those eyes. Does it look like she's judging you? So Judge, kind of like the Judge Dredd stuff, that if you've ever watched the cartoon series, the comics Judge Dredd, I used to read that as a kid, and that looks like the Judge icon, the Judge emblem that they used to have. She's looking at you with those eyes, judging you. Okay, so how did I photograph this? A faster shutter speed. I think I had it in shutter priority mode, and I was zooming in and out. So shutter at 484 mils, aperture and ISO all in order with my 150 to 600 millimeter Sigma lens that I'm renting. I'm still renting it a year later. It's kind of a rent lease thing. So I didn't want to buy it outright in case I didn't like it. So I've done this rent lease thing, and I suggest you guys, if you're ever going to Africa or you're going to do something where you need specialized equipment, rent it if you can. Much better. There we go. So what I like about this image, I like that her wing is in the foreground over there. So she's kind of looking over at us. And she was part of the, I'm trying to think of what it is, Victoria Falls Wildlife Conservancy, something like that, where they save wounded wildlife, and they also help locals. They mitigate if wildlife like elephants come into their fields and start eating their crops, they figure out how to get the elephants not to do that, so that the locals don't kill the wildlife. And they also have wildlife people in the local community that they pay to help with wildlife, so that the money actually goes back to the community, so that the community can see the benefit of actually having wildlife around them. And they stop the elephants from coming into the crops by shooting them with a air gun that's filled with chili powder. So the chili powder hits them and sprays out, and then they don't like that. Actually, let me go and see if I can just go back to my face here. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So now you guys can probably see me. So the chili powder, they got this air gun that they fill up with these chili powder blanks, and they shoot it. It's compressed air, and it shoots this big blank, and it hits these elephants and sprays chili powder everywhere, so they then don't come back. They don't like it, the elephants. So I'll go back to sharing my screen here. All right, back to, there we go. Okay, cool. So there's Judge. what I like about this image is she's looking to our left, and I can see the shadow on her wing. I just love vultures. They are, I think this is a white-backed vulture or Cape vulture. I'm not quite sure. They're very similar. Probably a white-backed, being in Zimbabwe. Um, they are ugly creatures, but this, I think, Judge is a beautiful, beautiful bird. Anyway, back to some of my images. So I photographed this one with my Lumix camera, a little micro four thirds camera, more just kind of behind the scenes images, and a 12mm lens, which is equivalent to 24mm. So this is our pilot taking us to our first safari lodge, and I like the way he's looking over his shoulder. I can see his face. We got a little bit of the propeller there, and it's just kind of an over the shoulder shot, and I held my camera up forwards and I photographed as he turned to his left. All right, and then we got to our first safari lodge. Beautiful elephants, lots of elephant shots. I'm going to run through them really quickly. A lot of bird shots, and this is where a long lens really comes in handy. Look at this, I'm photographing a lot of these at 600 mils. So I love the textures on this elephant. Oh, and this image, I wanted to share this one with you guys because it shows all of us, well, most of us, some of us, getting ready in the morning. And I photographed this. I think I handheld it. 17mm lens, 1/20th of a second, so very slow shutter speed. And you can see there's a lot of blurring here where everyone's eating. Also, a very wide angle, my 17mm, because I wanted to get the first light. It's dawn. It's very cold at this particular camp in Hwange National Park. Eugene over there getting his food, Amber and the rest of us around the fire to warm up. And I always get up really early. I think every morning I was the first one there, and it's a little bit scary walking from your safari tent in the dark to the main tent, this one over here, because there's all sorts of things that can eat you in the bush. Makes you feel a lot more alive. And then we saw this beautiful lion. I think it's two brothers that actually control this area, so I just wanted to show you. And I love creating black and whites of everything. I wanted to share this image too because of the framing I'm using here. So we're at a waterhole looking at the zebras and impalas and all that, and then I noticed the bush in the foreground, and I noticed this zebra about to walk into this bush. So as we were leaving, I asked the driver to move forward, move back just a meter, 2 meters, a couple of feet, until I had my view like this, and we're in the safari vehicle, and then I photographed this zebra framed by this bush, and that's what I love about this image. Also, again, 600mm, so I'm photographing, and also very fast shutter speed, 1,000th of a second, and there's a black and white version of that. So framing's important. These are all composition rules, right? So there's the vehicle, there's Bluey, and the rest of them, I think it's Eugene and Amber in that vehicle. And just to show you how we were traveling around in those vehicles. And another black and white, and I'm framing this one too with the elephant walking towards them. Beautiful elephant images, buffaloes in sunset, with the sun shining through the dust that the buffaloes have kicked up. I love that because of the silhouette, those horns. So another one I shot at 600mm. So you notice, like most of my images, the ones I like the most, are shot fully zoomed out or zoomed in with my 600mm lens. So if you guys can comment again just to make sure you are hearing me. Okay, let's I'll just bring the comments up here and make sure I can see you guys. I'd like to learn post-processing color into black and white. Okay, that's great, Nancy. Thank you. Just go play on these color channels. All right, I'll do that for you. And Rachel, yes, still good. Great. Okay, another sunset, or after the sunset image, this one, I wanted to show the Milky Way. That same spot as I shot before. Let's go back to that image in the morning. There we go. So that's this exact same spot, photographed at night. And I think this was the place where Eugene got the fright of his life. So just behind me here, where I'm photographing the Milky Way and everyone getting ready for dinner, is a water hole, and a lot of the animals come and drink. So Eugene was setting up his tripod and photographing a similar image to me, but he was standing right up pretty much against the edge of the water hole, and he heard this lapping next to him, and funny, and he's just working on his camera, and I'll just go back to my face here if I can. Let's see. There we go. And Eugene's working on his camera, and he's looking, focused on what he's doing, and he's photographing the Milky Way, and he hears this lapping sound down on his left, and he turns down and he looks, and right next to his ankle is a hyena drinking water. And there's no fence between you and the wild animals. He must have crapped himself. Anyway, funny one. Is that rainbow? So Danielle asks, is there a rainbow blob in the sky of the moon? Okay, let's see. The rainbow blob in the sky of the moon. No, I think that is from the lights from this little safari tent. That's lens flare, basically, bouncing off of one of the elements in my lens. So that's what it is. I can probably edit it out. I think I did edit some of that out. Let's see. It's loading, so it's quite blurry right now, so let's give this a second. So I shot this at 30 seconds, f4 on a tripod, and 30 seconds is probably the longest you can shoot Milky Way stars with, because more than 30 seconds, because of the Earth turning, those stars are blurred. So 30 seconds is probably the longest. And I shot this wide open aperture, and I just put the ISO. I was trying different ISOs, and I think 640 was a good one at wide open lens. So it's taken a while to load this image for some reason. I think it's because I'm streaming live here. There we go. All right, so that's it. So you notice those stars are a little bit blurred, and I may have got my focus off on this image, but yeah, I probably did. It's difficult to focus when everything's totally dark, right? All right, so let's run through a couple more images. I've got quite a few to go through here, and here's an interesting one. These are the Zimbabwe lovebirds. They're like a parrot, and I photographed this. I was waiting for them to fly, so they were coming down and settling where all these seeds were, eating the seeds, and then they'd fly to another spot and then come back and fly to another spot. And I really wanted to get them in flight because I wanted to have their wings blurred, showing them in flight. So what I did was pre-focus on where they were, kind of the middle of the pack, the middle of this, the birds. And as soon as they flew, I'd shoot a couple of shots. So I'm shooting in 1/400th of a second, so slower than I would normally shoot, and with everything else in order, and trying to get that blurred movement of them flying. So let's wait for this image to load up here. And I love capturing movement and showing the blurred images to show movement. So there we go. Oh, it's taking forever. Anyway, we'll run through a couple more, and I won't spend too much longer on these African images, because I will go and make one black and white and show you how to edit these. So, but this, I just want to talk a little bit about this, because we went on this walk with Henry, the guide, and walked up to these elephants, and my goal was to just get as close as I can on foot to these elephants, and we did. We got close. Here I'm shooting, photographing through Amber and Eugene to the elephant. Forget what the elephant's name is. It'll come to me soon. So you can see how close we are. And there's Henry, our guide. He's actually been on one of the David Attenborough movies, which is great. John John is saying hello from Montreal, Canada. Hello, John. How are you? There we go. And I do really appreciate you guys coming on this live presentation. Thank you. And thank you for commenting. Let me know if you like this, if I'm not rambling on too much. So there we go. It'll come to me soon, the elephant's name. Anyway, I've got a couple of black and white images here, and I might take one of these to show you guys how I went from color to black and white. And Danielle says she loves the black and white elephants, the textures in them. So this is the image which made my trip. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing for me. These elephants in Manapools National Park do this thing. I don't know if they do it anywhere else in the world. Because in Manapools there's no giraffes. For some reason, I think it's once they flooded Lake Kariba, Manapools opened up, because this is normally underwater, right? So, and they only did it like 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And there's no giraffes in this area. So the bottom of the foliage of these trees is not, the bottom leaves aren't eaten by giraffes. So these elephants have actually evolved to learn to stand on their hind legs and get up to the juicy, sweet leaves at the bottom of this tree. And they call it a handstand, the locals. Henry calls it the handstand. I don't know why it should be a leg stand, but they call it a handstand. So here's the elephant. I'll get his name in a minute. Doing the handstand. So we saw this, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to be on foot photographing an elephant doing a handstand, something you don't normally see unless you're in a circus. And those elephants aren't, I wouldn't say they're very happy being in circuses. These ones are wild and free. Okay, Nancy says she's in Washington State. So thanks, Nancy, for watching. Washington State, great. All right, a couple more images. Photographing, here we go. There's an example of me using Brent's rule, my rule, of double the focal length. So I'm shooting at 1/1200th and a 50th of a second on a 600mm lens. So I'm photographing this impala jumping over some water. And one of my favorite images that Tracy took of all of us. Thank you, Tracy. She organized the whole trip. She's the expert safari person and good friend of mine. She actually lives here in Australia, but she's sometimes in South Africa too. And we went on this walk, and here's all of us with our long lenses. There's me with my longer lens, my 600mm. I think Eugene had a 500, or Amber had a 500, something like that. And Diana and Jack in the background there. So all of us trying to get that shot. So you notice how you get low and you hold your lens with your elbows. Notice my elbows on my leg there. And the lens is right up against my eye. So when you're photographing with a long lens like this, especially as the sun's going down and the light, you're losing light, you want to hold it as still as you can. If you don't, and you can't take a tripod on these walks, right? Because it's too heavy and bulky and stuff. So you want to use your body as a tripod and try and hold that lens as still as you can. So notice so I'm using a few points of contact. One on my leg, straight up to my lens. One on my eye, the camera's resting against my head, and my other hand is on it too. And I've also got my binoculars there. So Jenny says she's love it, living your experiences through your stories and photos. Thanks, Jenny. Awesome. Again, framing this antelope. I think, is that the sable? Not quite sure, I can't remember. Another shot of the Milky Way with my wide angle lens. Now, the reason I put this one in is because I was shooting with Eugene and Amber and someone else, and we're photographing we'd had dinner, I think, and there's a little bit of a fire going still, and I'm trying to balance the foreground with the night sky. And I was testing out the ISO. So I'm shooting 30 seconds, wide open aperture, and all you can really adjust is the ISO then, right? Because you can't open the aperture anymore. It's f4. That lens is f4. 30 seconds, you don't want to go much longer than 30 seconds because those you get blurring in the stars. And the only thing you can really change is the ISO. So I'm playing around with the ISO. 3200 ISO, 1600 ISO, 6400 ISO, 12,800 ISO to see which one works the best to get the exposure right. And I think I got it at 6,400 ISO. And that's trying to get the foreground and the background in balance them. Okay. Another shot of all of us with the few thousand-year-old baobab tree. Love it. Okay, and then we went on canoes. It was great. Okay, so here, what I want to show you, and I've just edited this before this presentation, is I've got these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images. I shot handheld. Okay, and I'll run through them. So I'm just shooting handheld. I think I shot it in manual exposure, so 100th of a second, f4 with 1,000 ISO at 70 mils. So all I'm doing is I'm shooting boom, 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 boom. Just turning my body. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's Eugene on the edge there. So I exposed for kind of the middle where the sun rising. And then I went back here and I used manual exposure and I shot these few images, and then I created this panorama out of them. So let me show you how I do that in Lightroom. So I'm in Adobe Lightroom, and by the way, I think Adobe is running a special right now where you can sign up and you can get like 2 months for free or something like that. Just go to adobe.com and check it out. So you grab these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images. I right click and I go to here we go, photo merge, and you go to panorama. So it's going to those 5 images and it's now going to create a panorama for me. So you go spherical projection, and I use the auto crop and auto settings, and then you merge them. So it merges all those images. It takes a little while depending on your processing power, and it comes up with one single image. There it is. And I'm going to go into the develop module here, and I'm going to show you what I did to this. So this will be my first edit image. So let's just see. We'll be going 37 minutes. Wow. Okay. All right. So what did I do here? There's the before and there's the after. All right. So let's just go back to the before image. So I'll go to where it came in, the before image. Whoops. Okay. That's the edge masking, sharpening. Okay. So there we go. Lemon smoothing. Temperature. Okay, so the first thing I did, that's how it comes straight out of Lightroom. I went to the auto exposure, auto settings over here, and this is what it's given me, right? So the first thing I do with this image is I went in and I cropped it a little bit. So I got Eugene on the left there. I may want to just crop in a little bit because it's quite a long panel. I could crop Eugene off if I wanted to. We'll leave him in there. Okay, so I've cropped the image, removing some of the distractions, making it less of a massive panorama. So I think right now I'm using a 1:3 ratio. So if it's 1 inch tall, it's 3 inches wide, which is a good kind of rule of thumb for panorama images, especially if you're going to print them out. So first thing I do is, because I'm photographing a sunrise, I want that sunrise to be nice and warm. But to see something as nice and warm and glowing orange and yellow, the best way to do that is to contrast it against a cool color. So if I make the whole image cooler, so we'll just bring it down so it's cooler, which makes the sunrise cooler also. So I've reduced the temperature. I've moved it to the left from where it was to make this image cooler. And then what I do is I use this radial filter, and I drag the radial filter over the sunrise area, and I can make it reasonably big, right? And I make sure that I'm feathering it quite a long way. So I'm feathering it. It's inverted. I can hit the O key, and it puts an overlay of where this mask is going to be used on this image. So I can click O again to get rid of it. So I'm using the right hand. Now what I do there is I move the temperature back to being warm again. And I don't want to overdo it too much. There we go. And I think I might take some of the highlights out of that sunrise. There we go. Okay, good. All right, so let's have a look at what I've done here. So let's go to the before and the after. Okay, so that's really all I've done. I've cropped this image, and then what I did was I made the whole image cooler, the white balance of the image, and then I used this radial filter to make just the sunrise warmer to where it was. Now the warmth of the sunrise, let's see, it'll take a while to bring this up because it's quite a big image, makes it look so much warmer because it's contrasted against the cool of the Zambezi River, and we had clouds this morning, which is quite unusual. Okay, the last thing I do with this edit is I may, so let's just go to detail, and I hold down the Option or Alt key while I'm sliding the masking slider, and what it's doing here is it's going to sharpen only those areas that are white and mask the areas that are black. So I'm just sharpening just the areas I want to sharpen. So I'm not sharpening any noise that there might be in the sky or in the foreground. And then I'll use a little bit of noise reduction because I was shooting at 1000 ISO, which does introduce a little bit of noise into your images. So there we go, guys. That's the first edit for you. I'll go back to the grid mode while Lightroom thinks about it. And while Lightroom's thinking about it, I might bring the comments up again and let me know, guys, what do you think? Was that simple enough? Do you want me to go more complex with these edits? Let me know. Here we go. Oh, I hope Lightroom's not going to crash on me now. Oh, there we go. Cool. Okay. So let me know if that's good. Give me some feedback on that edit. And I'll run through a couple more images in the meantime. So the kudu, beautiful. Lines mating. This is like the first time I've ever seen this close. And I may even do a little quick edit on this one too, because this image, as everyone on the safari that was there will know, was quite difficult to shoot because it's the lighting was horrible. The action was great, the lines mating, and this is probably the most the best angle, I think, which doesn't show too much. The other angles, they kind of turned around and made it again, and yeah, it wasn't. This is probably the most kid-friendly one, I suppose. I can say that. So you talk about the lenses, but what is your camera? Oh, my camera. Okay, I'm shooting with a full-frame Canon camera, the 6D Mark II and the 5D Mark III, I think it is. Just a full-frame sensor camera. It doesn't really matter what camera you're using. And that's Nancy asked that. What I suggest people, when people ask me what gear to get, what to buy, I always say get the gear that that you know how to use. You know where all the buttons are and everything like that, because you know what, when you're in a situation like this and things are happening, you want to know your gear. If you're shooting with Fujifilm, if you're shooting with Sony, if you're shooting with Nikon, Canon, doesn't really matter what you're shooting with, as long as you know your gear and it's the right gear for the right situation. So I'm shooting with a full frame sensor camera, so a 35mm equivalent sensor and a 35mm sensor and a long lens, 600mm lens. Now if I were to do it again, I would probably use a crop sensor camera and the 600mm lens, because I get even more reach then. So if it's like a 1.6 or 1.3 times, instead of 600mm, it will be like an 800mm lens equivalent, because you're only using part of the glass. So do you ever use Photoshop to edit? Peter asks. Yes, I do, Peter. And in the latest Bootcamp Masterclass and Challenge, with removing distracting elements, I go from Lightroom to Photoshop, because some things Lightroom can't do. But Lightroom's so much simpler. That's why I use it 90% of the time, because it is it's just more intuitive, and I love it, and I know it. It's just like a camera. Like when you know your camera, you know it. You know your tools. So Nancy asked, she was wondering about the noise level because mine is quite noisy, Canon 70D. And I think the 70D is a crop sensor camera. And yes, you get more noise with the smaller sensor. You get much more noise than the larger full frame sensor. So if you're shooting like dark, when you're shooting in the dark, like the Milky Way shots, you probably want a full frame sensor camera if you can, just because the sensor introduces less noise. But the technology is getting so much better, and Lightroom and Photoshop have noise reducing filters, so you can get rid of a lot of that noise in post-processing. Cool. All right, so thanks for those questions, guys. Let me get into the edit of this image. So let's show you the before image and the after. Okay, so what did I do here? Well, let's just go right to the beginning. I'm going to go, whoops, I'll go to the, let's see, I have to get rid of those. There's my history. We'll go to the import. All right, and we'll go. So there's the original image straight off the camera. So I've done nothing to it. How did I photograph this? I shot at a very fast shutter speed, auto aperture and auto ISO. And I'm shooting at almost 600 mils, 530 mils, trying to get in there. But you'll notice where the light is. The sun is behind these mating lines, and it's catching that early morning, very light, dead grass, which is reflecting everywhere. So it's a really difficult image to shoot, right? You've got silhouetted lions, and you don't want that. You actually want the lions in the sun, and you want the background dark, right? Because when you're looking at images, your eye goes automatically to the lightest part of the image or the most contrasty part of the image. I don't know if you can hear the birds singing in the background here. So I've got dogs and birds and kids, and now we're dealing with lions, right? So the lighting is all wrong on this image, but you do the best you can because it's an amazing scene happening in front of you. You want to capture it. So the first thing I do here is I crop thing. So let's crop off that darker bit at the back there, and we crop down to here. Okay, and I might even turn this slightly. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. All right, someone's just asked me a question. Let me have a look at what it is. There we go. I'll put the questions up. Nancy, thanks. Thanks. She's enjoying my presentation. Crop factor 1.6. Yep. Danielle, great. Okay, cool. Okay, perfect. Okay, so first thing I crop, get rid of some of the distractions. Now I've got more even lighting, even though these lines are backlit, and it's not the best. So the first thing I do, I think it was Danielle or Nancy asked me, is I'll go to black and white. So all I do is go treatment, black and white, right over there. Just convert it straight to black and white in Lightroom, and then I click the auto toning button. So let's see what that does. Ew, even worse. So sometimes Lightroom gets it wrong, right? But that's okay, it's a start. So Lightroom's brought down the highlights, they've upped the shadows, upped the whites, and brought down the blacks. Okay. Which Lightroom's trying to get my histogram to be more even, which it is over here. Okay. But, like sometimes us humans are smarter than the artificial intelligence programmed into these things. So let's see what we can do with this image. Okay. I don't mind that the highlights at the back. I'm going to bring the shadows up even more over here. Okay. And that's even looking a little bit better. So the first thing I would do is use the radial filter. And I want to bring out the most important part of this image, which is the lion's faces, right? And the eyes especially. And I'm getting a little bit of wind now, so you may hear wind noise in this mic. Hopefully not. All right, so I'm moving that radial filter over the eyes. See, I hit the O button to show the overlay of where it's going to work. Hit it again. Maybe it'll get rid of it. And what am I going to do with that area? Let's increase the exposure just a little. I'm going to increase the contrast quite a bit. Okay, maybe the exposure was too much. So maybe a third of a stop. Do I bring up the shadows? No. Or do I bring up the whites? Let's see. Yeah, the whites. Okay, and I'm going to bring up the clarity a lot, because I want my viewer to go to be attracted to their faces, and clarity and contrast bring me in there, but I also want to lighten it up a little bit. So the reason I'm using clarity in this area and not the rest of the image is because I want the rest of the image to be a little bit softer, but the lion's faces to be more clear, have more clarity, so your eye automatically goes to that area. So there we go. Let's have a look at the before and the after. Already it's starting to look a lot better. Okay, next thing I might do here is add some vignetting. So I'd go down to the effects panel at the bottom, and I might add some vignetting. Okay, I'm going to go overboard here to show you what not to do. That's too much, and you often see this, and it kind of ruins the image because it doesn't look natural when you have so much vignetting like this. So you just want a little bit of vignetting, like what you would get naturally from the lens. Like the lens has a light fall off as it gets to the edges. So I'll just move it down a little bit. I'll up the feather for the vignetting up to like 80%. And what the vignetting is doing now is it's darkening the edges. So it's bringing my viewer's eye to the lions a little bit more. All right. So already, let's go to the before. I hit the backspace key, backslash key, and after. So already, notice how your eye is going from the background to the lion's faces, right? Okay, so I may try one more thing here. I'm going to use the radial filter again. I'm going to drag it around both lions. Okay. Let's see if I can do this with my little keypad. And there we go. So I'm fitting all the lions in there, their bodies. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unclick the invert part of this filter. Okay, and hit the O key. So now I want to see where this filter is going to be applied. It's going to be applied around the lines. Okay, that's good. And there's a lot of feather there too. I could even drag it out a little bit more and down a little. Move it down. There we go. Okay, so hit the O key again. And now what I'm going to do is reduce the highlights around the lines. I can go all the way. Yeah. And I may even reduce the whites around the lines a little more. Okay, good. Cool. And I think that's where I'd leave it. That's probably as good as I can go right now. Let's go to the before and after. Okay, so I've taken a really bad lit image, but good action, to something that's bringing my eye into the lion's faces. And look at those eyes, man. That's just like, you don't want to disturb him when they're mating. That lion it'll kill you. So there we go, guys. Hope that helps. So that's 2 edits I've done. Let me know in the comments if this is helping, and if I answered your questions. Let's pull up the comments while I'm waiting for my computer to catch up. Great. So if you guys let me know if this is working, if you can still hear me. I think we're at almost 53 minutes, so I'll end this off. I'll try and keep it under an hour today. Well, you guys asked me if you want me to go in any other direction, let me know. I can keep going forever. I love this stuff. All right, so there we go. I'll just double check with my wife if you guys are still hearing me. Stace, still working? Oh, she paused me. Okay, she's not interested. All right. I'll run through a couple more images, and I think you're getting the idea now. 600mm, I'm shooting really close, very educational. Thanks, Rachel. Rachel's added, thanks. Great, thank you, Rachel. And can you give more clarity with it? Yes, you can. Daryl, you can definitely go in and do more clarity, but I already done clarity on the whole face, so I think I covered that. Danielle says it helps to hear your thinking process as you do it. Thank you. Yes. And do you ever use test various preset filters? I did, Fred. I've got a lot of preset filters. Mainly what I use now is I use like a Brent starting point filter for for landscape images and Brent starting point filter for portrait images, and it saves me time by doing all those sliders for me. Sometimes I use Johnny's filters, my friend Johnny Spencer, and hopefully I'll have him on the next live thing. We'll give it a try. I use his filters because that's taught me how to go the workflow. Johnny's filters, his workflow filters are really good for that. Thanks, enjoying the pictures. Very helpful. How about a black and white landscape? Okay, I'll do a black and white landscape for you, Nancy. And enjoying the pictures. Personally, I never use Lightroom, use Photoshop. This is John saying this, and I started to use Luminar. So I tested Luminar for a little bit. I like it. It doesn't matter. It's just another tool, like your camera and your lens. Use whatever tool you are comfortable with and and it'll save you a lot of time and frustration. So thanks, guys, for that. Run through a couple last images. This is one of my favorite images. And I want to show you this one because it relates back to the current bootcamp masterclass and challenge about removing distracting elements. And I just did this one in Lightroom. So I'm bringing it into the develop module in Lightroom. I'll hit the before and the after. Now have a look at the top of the ear over here, this little elephant's ear running out of the water. And you'll see that distracting branch stick in the background there. I try to get rid of that. Don't know if I did a great job. It's okay for me. I don't look there anymore because now I know it's gone. I look at the elephant. I think if I had to do this again, I'd bring this into Photoshop and definitely use the content aware tool to get rid of that around the ear over there. So great. So we'll go back to my grid mode. Do you always use start with the auto button versus lowering highlights to the left and setting white and black points? I've started. Peter's asked me whether I use the auto button in Lightroom to get the levels in that right, or do I use lowering the highlights and setting the white and black points? So let me pull up an image over here. We'll pull up this one. We'll go to develop here. That's the leopard we saw on the Safari. And so what Peter's saying is, do I use the auto button here? So you click the auto, and then Lightroom does its thing, and it's did a pretty good job there, if you ask me. Or I'll hit Control Z to go back, undo my settings. Or do I pull down the highlights and hold down Shift and double click whites, hold down Shift and double click blacks? So that's where you set the white and black point. Hold down Shift while you double click the word white, and hold down Shift while you double click the word blacks. And then what Lightroom does is it sets everything according to this histogram. So it sets the white point and the black point according to the histogram. So you can do it that way, whatever works for you. I've started to use the auto a lot more because it seems to me like Lightroom, the artificial intelligence built inside Lightroom, is getting better. So they're getting much better at getting closer to what you really want. So I'll click the auto button first just to see if it's anywhere close to where I want to start. And if it is, then I'll move sliders from there. If it's not, I'll just hit Control Z, go back, and I may use some of my presets to get started. It doesn't matter. There's so many ways to skin a cat. Yeah, excuse the pun. So we got a cat here. So yeah, the auto for this one actually did a good job. And then what I may use is the radial filter on top of this leopard to bring out some of those details in the leopard here. So I may use it for the clarity, and I might bring the shadows up on this leopard. And I'm just doing a really rough, quick one here, right? So so we can get through and get to a few more images. So there we go. So that's what I might do with this one. Hope that helps, Peter. Hope I answered your question there. Eugene's on here. Yay, hey Eugene, how are you? It says, so awesome to relive the scenes and good times. We should be having a beer together, Eugene, right now in South Africa. So anyway, we'll have to wait another year. So this leopard we saw on the way back to the little airstrip, and this Franklin, they call them spurfowls now, spurfowl, was taunting this leopard. It was playing chicken. This chicken was playing chicken with the leopard. And the leopard didn't get it, but it was close. So let's run through a few more images. Okay, what I liked about this image, our little airplane coming down to pick us up, and I've framed it with the safari vehicle. And let's see what else we got here. What else can I interest you guys with? Let's see. We'll go away from some of the safari images. Sorry, I got trucks and everything coming past me now. So hopefully it's not too loud, delivery trucks and whatever. Okay, so let's pull up a few other images I took while I was creating my mastering composition course. So an image I photographed in the gun emplacements in my area. So what I like about this image and why I converted to black and white is her dress and the way she's posed between these two concrete things that were created in World War II. So I like that one. Here's another image I shot where I'm breaking my rule. I'm breaking my shutter speed and focal length rule. 600mm lens. I'd normally shoot at 1/1200th of a second. Here I'm shooting at 1/30th of a second, really slow. But I want to get the movement. I want a more arty image. And the sun was setting. It's creating these weird colors too. So there's something you can do. You don't have to always follow the rules. You're allowed to break them. Another image from that course, photographing waterfalls. So what did I shoot this at? 1.6 seconds. So I'm shooting at a very slow shutter speed. Why? Because I want that blurry, milky, beautiful, silky waterfall and the water coming past me down the left here. So you'll notice over here I've actually got a leading line. If you follow from the bottom left of this image, it draws your eye in from the bottom left all the way up to the main point of interest, which is the waterfalls. So shooting at f16, so closed down aperture so that I can get a large depth of field. So this everything in the foreground all the way to the background should be in focus. 21mm lens, so that should be quite wide angle, and I'm also shooting at a very low ISO, 50 ISO, so that I can get a longer shutter speed. Now the problem if you're photographing waterfalls and it's a bright day and the sun's out, like you notice the sun's up on the cliffs over there, often there's too much light to shoot at a slow shutter speed. Even when you bring your ISO down to 50 or 100, as low ISO as you can, you're closing the aperture as much as you can, so you're letting in as little light as you can, and then you're trying to have a longer shutter speed. Often the shutter speed is still too fast to photograph. That's where you need a neutral density filter. So you put a neutral density filter on in the front of your lens to darken the light coming in, and then you can shoot at a slower shutter speed. And I think, if I remember right, I was shooting with a neutral density filter here, even to get that 1.6 seconds, because I think the fastest I could probably get was like a third of a second or quarter of a second, and then I put a 3-stop neutral density filter on there, and that would allow me to use allow me to go 1.6 seconds. And Fred just asked, do you use an ND filter? Yes, thank you, Fred, for that. I do use ND filters. Here's something I really like too, photographing with a very long shutter speed, 13 seconds, and these are just bubbles that are flowing down this river, and they hit a little eddy over here first thing in the morning. This is where I stood on that stonefish when I went swimming in this little stream. Not fun, ended up in hospital. That was painful. Okay, and a couple of images I photographed from my drone, whales coming past in winter. I love these shots. I haven't even really edited these. This one I really like because look at this. I'm going to zoom in for you guys. That There's dolphins in front of the whales. How cool is that? And is that dolphin out of the water? Maybe. Might be jumping right in front of the whale. So whales playing with dolphins. So much fun. And this is just off the coast right here. Okay, so Daryl asks, what camera do you have set as low as ISO 50? My lowest is 100. Yes, my 5D Mark III, I think, can go to 50. I know there are some cameras that can go even lower, like 30 ISO or 33 or something. Kim's on here. Hey, Kim, how you doing? Hi, Brent. Thanks for live session. Love reliving Africa images. Yeah, great. Kim joined us too, and we were supposed to be in Africa right now, Kim. Anyway, next year is another year. Hopefully they got a vaccine and we can travel by then. It's taking longer than I thought. Anyway, I know a lot of people are working on that, and to get our economies running again, which is also important. Okay, so a couple of last images. Here I'm photographing at a very fast shutter speed so that I can freeze the action. This is the box king of the box surfing contest at my local break, Box Beach. So I've caught this guy doing an aerial maneuver. And when you're photographing sports, try to have the person's face in view. I've noticed a lot of people when they photograph sports, they have the person going away from them and you can't see their face. So try and get their face. You want that facial expression at least. So Rick asks, can't see the lower left of the elephant. Can you move your lower right to the Lightroom tools? Lower left of the elephant. Okay. I may go back to that one, Rick. Let me just have a look at which one you were talking about. I'll go because I haven't looked at an elephant for a while. That may have taken a while to come through. Yeah, not sure. Anyway, we'll get back to that. I may run through a few more images, do another live session and run through more images. But let's run through the last couple I've got here. Another one where I'm using a slow shutter speed with a long lens to get movement. And here you notice I got the guy's face. I can see his face there too, and his facial expression. And so Nancy says, do you also use EV to control the light? Yes, I do. Overexpose or underexpose depending on what I'm doing. So for instance, this image where I'm shooting silhouette, what are these? Yeah, I don't know. My brain's not working. Where I'm shooting silhouette birds, let's call them birds in the water. I would underexpose by a stop over here. Pelican, the black, I don't know. Sorry, maybe it's getting a bit late in the day for me. So swans, black swans. My brain. Sorry, guys. So the black swans, photographing at sunset, silhouetting. So when I silhouette, I will underexpose by a stop. Otherwise, what my camera will do is it will try and keep my whole image properly exposed, which means the highlights in my image will be white, will be blown out, and there'll be more information in the darks in the image. So yeah, Daryl, thank you. Swans, Angel, how do you pronounce your name, man? I know I asked you when you joined boot camp, and you said I should look it up. It's a traditional way, but I'm not quite sure. Eugene Swans, Rick Swans, Danielle Swans, John Swans. Yeah, okay. Thanks, guys. I'm an idiot. Yeah, okay. We're all human, right? Okay, I haven't had breakfast. I haven't eaten anything today. Maybe that's why my brain's not working properly. So, yeah, back to when I over and underexpose. Underexpose for silhouettes, and overexpose when you're photographing in the snow or something that's very bright and you want detail in your main object. So if you don't overexpose in snow, the snow looks grey. So you need to overexpose in snow. So yes. A couple more images, just general things in my area. This was for my mastering composition course. Just photographing, finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, I suppose. I'm photographing things that you see every day, but I'm focusing on parts of this image. So I'm focusing on the coffee pouring out. Lyle, my local barista down the road, he's still open, luckily, takeaway only, so he makes a good coffee. So here, this was complementary colors, I think. I was photographing the gold on the teal, so it jumps out. One of my favorite little dingoes, she is now fully grown. We call her Slides because of Johnny. She stole Johnny's flip-flops, his slides, and ran off with them. Joyce, Joyce, you're on here too. Miss you, Joyce. Hope you're okay. And where was the surfer taken? John asked. Taken at my local break, Box Beach. It's a barrely wave, breaks almost on the shore. So, and they have a contest every winter there called the King of the Box Surfing Contest. And Danielle, you have black swans in Australia? Yes, we do. You have white ones there? Yes. Okay. Hence the saying of an unexpected event as a black swan. Yes, we've got black swans here. They're beautiful. If I could remember the name Swan. Okay, there's Slides. That's when Slides was a little pup. And this was one I took for one of the other boot camp challenges. That's my son Wesley. And this was in-camera motion challenge. And him skating around the skate ramp, our local skate ramp. And so what I'm shooting here is 1/10 of a second on a 12mm, which is equivalent to 24mm lens on a full frame sensor camera, because this is a micro 4/3 camera. So I'm shooting at a much slower shutter speed compared to the lens. I'm standing in the middle of the skate ramp and he's going past me and I'm moving, I'm panning. So I'm creating that movement in the background. Thanks. Okay, cool. And then here's my friend Timmy, who helped me make my very first surfboard, which I shaped end of last year. And he's putting the finish coat on, the fiberglass, the resin, and he's moving his hand back and forth. So I was focused on his hand and moving. My camera was moving with his hand. So what I like about this is his hand with the protective glove is reasonably sharp, but everything else is blurred. And you notice the surfboards in the background are blurred. His head's blurred, and I don't know. It's just more of an arty shot, and I think this is something us creative people can do quite often, is just play with shutter speed and see how you can get these cool looking images. And then one of my favorite birds, the rainbow lorikeet, at my friend Macca's house. He feeds them and they come over. What I liked about this image is I'm positioned where the sun is right behind me, but look at in the background, there's a silhouette of another bird on a branch where it's in the shade from the branch. So it's I like that because of the like one bird looking at the other bird, and one's a silhouette and one's in a beautiful light, and getting the light in the eye. And here I shot again 600 mils on my long lens. Beautiful. And there's another rainbow lorikeet, a few more. And then I think this was my last image. Yes, this is a model I worked with, and I photographed this from a drone. So I've never photographed models from a drone too, and I like this image because she's in the water and swimming and posing for me. So there it is, guys. So yeah, any other questions? I'm willing to answer any questions you guys have now. Do you shoot continuous mode when shooting surfers? Peter asked that. Yes, when I'm photographing surfers, let's just go back to my face here. Hold on, Peter. There we go. So when I'm photographing surfers, yes, I do shoot in like high-speed drive mode. So I'll go tick, 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 tick. But I'll wait until they getting ready to do that peak maneuver. So let's just say a surfer's about to drop in on a wave and it's going to barrel. I'll wait until he drops down, and then I'll go tick, 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 tick. I'll probably shoot 3 or 4 images and hopefully get that peak maneuver when he's at the peak of his performance image. If they're going to do an aerial maneuver, I can anticipate, and then they go up, and I'll try and get the peak maneuver. So that's what I'm trying to do with surfers. Okay, so Daryl asked, should I repeat when I under and overexpose images? Yes, so if I'm shooting a silhouette image, so into bright sunlight, where I've got something in the foreground like those swans, the black swans, I'll underexpose by a stop or 2 stops. Sunrise, sunset, I'll underexpose a little bit. 1 to 2 stops, 3 stops sometimes, because the background is so much brighter than the foreground, and I want to silhouette the main point of interest, so I'll underexpose. And when do I overexpose? If I'm shooting in snow, I'll overexpose, because snow is not the main point of interest. Snow is the background, so you want to blow the snow out. I heard a saying once said, underexpose for a black cat and overexpose for a white something. Can't remember what it was. White. Maybe someone can let me know. But I always remember underexposed for a black cat, and it kind of goes counterintuitive what you think, like something dark, why do you want to underexpose? And something light, why do you want to overexpose? But that's why, because your camera tries to make everything 18% gray. It's the exposure compensation in your camera is trying to make it gray, everything gray. So that's why black, normally it makes it too bright, and then white, it makes it too dark. So that's when I'd and also if you're shooting people into the sun, so if the sun's behind someone, you want to overexpose also. Yes, the light behind them is going to be totally blown out, but there you want their face to be properly exposed. Unless you're using your exposure, it's looking at just a single point on someone's face, then your camera will get it right. But I normally use evaluative exposure, where it takes the whole scene in, looks at where you focused on, and takes the average and tries to figure out what the exposure should be for that scene. Wedding dress, there we go, Nancy, yes. So a wedding is the most difficult thing to get the exposure right? Because you've got the bride wearing a white dress, and you've got the groom wearing a black tuxedo. So how do you expose that? Do you expose for the white? Do you expose for the black? That's a tough one. So spot metering. Yep, Danielle. Yes. So that's probably, if I was still photographing weddings, I would use spot metering on the bride and groom's faces. And what will happen is the black tuxedo will be really dark, and the white dress will be overexposed, and there'll be no details in the dress, but their faces will be properly exposed. So it's a difficult one, right? Awesome. Thanks, Brent. Your first go was great. I'll be back next time. Thank you, John. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Danielle, Nancy. Thanks, guys, everyone, for watching this. If you have any more questions, just ask me below this video. Once it should be live, it'll be saved on YouTube, I hope, and I'll do another one. So let me know, what you guys want to learn in the next one, what you want me to cover, and I'll do that. Awesome, guys. Have a great day wherever you are in the world. I'm going to shut this down, eat something, and go for a surf, and then I'm going to jump into boot camp and start commenting on people's images. Just remember, I'll put the link below for the 30-day trial, free trial into boot camp, my membership. We'll meet a lot of these people, Rachel, Peter, Eugene, and the current bootcamp challenge is all about removing distracting elements. So thanks, guys. Have an amazing day, and thanks, Rachel. So Rachel asks, as a professional photographer, you can be out and about. Great time to document your area in the city. Yes, you're right, Rachel. It's a good time to go out and photograph what's happening in your area with all the shutdown, because I don't think we may never experience this again. So it's a really good time to go out and document what's happening in your local area. Rick says, thank you. Danielle, cannot wait until next time. Thank you, Danielle. Daryl, thanks, mate. Fred, thanks, Bruce. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Have an amazing day. I'm going to end this now if I can figure it out. Bye.